Uncover 6 hours of spine-chilling scary stories. Forbidden rainy nights expose terrifying secrets. The rain hammered against the diner's windows like 1,000 frantic hearts. Sarah, a 34-year-old single mother, stood behind the counter, wiping down the grimy surface for the 4th time. Each flicker of the fluorescent lights overhead felt like an omen, a prelude to an inevitable dread. Tonight, the air crackled with tension, far more than the usual night shift lull. It wasn't just the storm raging outside, it was something darker creeping in. That's when her phone rang. The diner's payphone clattered eerily, slicing through the diner's quiet hum. One ring, followed by a haunting silence. Sarah hesitated, her gut twisting as she caught the eye of a regular patron, his gaze suddenly intense. She picked up the receiver, but no one answered. Just static. A chill shot down her spine, and just as she set it down, another call came through, this one from an unknown number. It echoed ominously against the diner's bright lights. "You should watch your kids," a voice slithered through, chilling her to the core. Every tick of the clock felt like a countdown, as if the hands were whispering warnings. Sarah remembered the hushed tones in the streets outside. Neighbors once aloof now clustered together, their faces taut with shared fear, eyes darting toward her home. The playground, once a happy sanctuary for Lucy and Max, had morphed into a sinister backdrop for whispered terrors. Rumors of a predator lurked within the community, shadows whispering of children going missing, their laughter replaced by chilling quietude that stretched like an unwanted fog. The rain lashed against the glass, the smell of fried food faded into the background, overtaken by something acrid that made her stomach churn. A sudden crack of thunder echoed through the diner, and she instinctively glanced toward the window. Discomfort settled in her chest as she recalled each evening spent dozing on the couch, lulled by a false sense of security. Neighbors had borrowed sugar, shared idle chit-chat, but now their faces twisted with anxiety, like those of hunted animals. What if the woman next door, the one who always smiled at her as she fetched her mail, was hiding dangerous secrets? Panic gripped her. Taking a deep breath, she resolved to protect her children at whatever cost. Standing, she stepped outside into the rain. The cold dripped down her neck. Despite her unease, she maneuvered through the darkness, feeling eyes on her back. Each step crept with dread. Was it her imagination, or were whispers skimming along the surface of the frigid night air? She caught fragments of shared worry, as neighbors exchanged furtive glances, a conspiracy of silence heavy in their midst. The scene unfolded like nightmare fuel. A thread of terrifying buzz about recent disappearances seemed to wind around her, tightening with every heartbeat. Faces of missing children stared back in her mind, icy and hollow. Those innocent smiles were overshadowed by the specter of a lurking predator. What if she was encircled by predators disguised as friends? The world around her felt like a ticking bomb, waiting to explode into chaos. Just as she reached her doorstep, her phone vibrated violently in her pocket, the unknown number flashing across the screen. She hesitated, fear pooling in her gut, but the panic of the situation required immediate action. She glanced back at the huddled neighbors, their eyes glued to her, a collective understanding chilling the air. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah's heart raced as she contemplated her next move. This night had turned into a maze of terror, twisting her perception of everyone around her. The secure life she once embraced spiraled into uncertainty. Shadows loomed larger, distrust seeped through the cracks of her once calm world. Within those deepening fears, a blend of resolve and desperation propelled her forward. What truth lurked on the other side of her front door? What terror awaited her return? Uncertainty wrapped itself around her like the fog enveloping the street, both chilling and longing. The storm continued to rage, an unrelenting backdrop to the haunting questions lingering in the air. As she stood frozen on her doorstep, Sarah felt the icy fingers of dread gripping her heart. The phone buzzed again, this time insistent, demanding her attention. A bead of sweat trickled down her back, despite the downpour soaking her to the bone. With trembling hands, she raised the device to her ear, forcing herself to swallow the lump in her throat. "Hello?" she managed, each syllable wrapped in fear. The static crackled, like an electric storm simmering just beneath the surface. Then the voice returned, smooth and slithering, "I hope you're not outside, it's too dangerous." "Who is this?" Sarah snapped, defiance sparking through the fear. She turned back to the gathering shadows of her neighbors, their faces carved in fear and concern. Did one of them know who was on the other end? "Your children," the voice continued, unfazed, "they're more precious than you realize. It would be a shame to lose them just like the others." The world dropped away. The air thickened, impossibly heavy, as those words sunk deep into her bones. She could see Lucy and Max laughing, their innocent smiles lighting up her thoughts. But that light felt dim now, extinguished by an encroaching darkness that crept closer with every beat of her heart. "Don't say that," Sarah gasped, desperately clinging to hope. She had to get back inside, had to shield her children from this nightmare. A low chuckle echoed from the line, cold and distant. "You can't keep them safe forever. I'm always watching from the shadows." A swift crack of thunder jolted her back to reality. The call ended, the dial tone replaced the chilling voice, leaving her standing alone in the drenched air. Panic clawed at her throat. She bolted back inside, slamming the door behind her, heart racing, each pulse drumming the warning of imminent danger. Inside, the diner felt uncomfortably familiar, yet foreign. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly glow that heightened her anxiety. She glanced toward the back where she heard giggles, the soft sound of her children unaware of the growing storm spiraling around them. "Lucy! Max!" she shouted, her voice cracking. In moments, they dashed into the main area, their faces flushed with confusion. "Get over here," she urged, ushering them toward her. This wasn't just a storm, not with the darkness that hung over their home. "We're locking the doors, and no one goes outside. Do you understand?" But Max started, but she silenced him with a fierce look. The neighbors, they were staring. Lucy's voice quivered, sensing the electric tension in the air. Sarah knelt, pulling both kids close. She could feel their warmth, their softness, grounding her as adrenaline overran her system. Something is out there. Oblivion threatened, dark and suffocating. She pulled the children into an embrace, drowning in the anxiety of the unknown. She fought to maintain her composure, but the reflection of fear in Lucy's wide eyes shattered her resolve. Suddenly, a loud banging erupted against the diner's front door, slamming rhythmically like a heartbeat. The kids gasped, and Sarah's stomach twisted. "Stay here," she warned, the tremor in her voice betraying her. She crept toward the sound, every step echoing through the empty diner. A voice broke through the chaos, a frantic call intermingled with the rain. "Help! Please let me in." Her hands shook as she reached for the door, every instinct screaming to stop. Who was it? Friend or foe? What lay beyond the threshold of her sanctuary? The tension thickened like fog. It was impossible to breathe. And then, just as she was about to unlock it, the voice faltered, shifting into a sinister whisper. "You shouldn't have let your guard down." Sarah, a chill, more paralyzing than the storm, filled the space between them, and she knew the nightmare had only just begun. Was whoever stood out there part of the terror that loomed over her family? What could possibly lie ahead? The thunder cracked again, louder this time, shaking the diner's windows. Sarah's heart raced as she retreated a few steps, pushing her children deeper behind her. She needed to think. Uncertainty clouded her mind like the storm outside. "What should we do, Mom?" Max whispered, eyes wide and frightened. "Stay away from the door," she ordered, her voice sharp but quaking. "And don't make a sound." The banging continued, punctuated by the voice pleading for help. But now, It felt wrong, twisted. Shivers danced up her spine. I can see you. The voice suddenly changed, more menacing, dripping with deceit. You think you're safe, don't you? Just because the door is locked. Stop it. Lucy cried, burying her face in Sarah's side. Mom, please. Max's face was pale, his small hands trembling. She felt their fear like a tangible weight on her chest, and for a moment, a flicker of doubt gnawed at her resolve. What if the person outside was in real danger? No. The voice had shifted, coiling like a snake, sending her protective instincts reeling. We're not letting you in. She shouted back, hoping for some semblance of authority, grasping at fleeting confidence. The kitchen behind her was stark and shadowy, dishes stacked haphazardly, as if the diner itself were bracing for the inevitable. Why do you care, Sarah? The voice chuckled softly, dripping with malevolence. You never cared about the others. Her mind raced. She felt the blood drain from her face. In the distance, shouts and chaos were overshadowed by her own panic. What others? She croaked, the voice dropped to a whisper, reverberating through the rain-soaked glass. You must know them, the ones who vanished. A car screeched outside, tires slipping on the wet pavement, and it pulled her back to the moment. But her thoughts churned as emotion clawed at her gut. Had children gone missing? She felt sick, dizzy from the weight of it all. The banging abruptly stopped. Cold dread settled like ice in her veins. Sarah squinted towards the door, her heart pounding in her ears. What was this silence? No way could heartbeats echo louder than the relentless downpour. Then, from the back of the diner, she heard laughter. It was softer now, like a distant memory. Lucy. Max. She called out, her voice trembling. Mom, we're here, look. Lucy's small voice was nearly drowned by the melody of pattering rain. The laughter drew closer, yet it felt wrong, almost mocking. The dark space felt like it was closing in, shadows creeping alongside her, whispering secrets she didn't want to hear. What is happening? She demanded, holding on to the counter for support, her nails digging into the cold surface. Why don't you find out? The voice returned through the door, layered with cruelty. I'll give you a tour. Every instinct screamed at her, but Sarah edged to the back where her children had gathered. Their eyes sparkled, but it wasn't joy that reflected back, it was something darker, a glint of mischief she had never seen before. Come on, Mom. It's fun. Lucy urged, stepping forward, her tiny feet moving toward the door. Lucy, stop. But it was too late. The door cracked open slightly, the wind rushing in, carrying with it a chill that sent ice through her heart. Shadows danced just beyond, taunting her. The air thickened with fear and anticipation. Something terrible loomed just outside. With a sudden shove, the door swung fully open, revealing an inky abyss where shapes flickered at the edges. Sarah's breath caught as she stepped back, looking to Lucy and Max now grinning, despite the danger glaring back at them, enticing them to step into the unknown. What had her children just seen? Was it hope or a trap? As Sarah stood paralyzed, a shadow loomed larger, and laughter, a chilling, echoing laughter, rang through the diner, promising that the worst was yet to come. What secrets were drawn into the storm, and would Sarah survive this unnerving descent into madness? Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as she stood transfixed by the open door, the storm's wind hurling rain into the diner like a vengeful spirit. Lucy and Max were now whispering something to the shadows beyond, words that wrapped around her mind like a vice, squeezing until only fear remained. Come play with us. Lucy's voice floated back, sweetly sinister. It sent chills racing down Sarah's spine. Stay back. She shouted, clenching her fists. The familiarity of her daughter's voice twisted into a knot of terror that lodged deep in her throat. She had never heard Lucy sound like this, so eager, so possessed. Max stepped forward, his small features distorted by an unnatural grin, eyes wide as the moon. It's really fun, Mom. You just have to see the darkness beyond the threshold rippled, as if it were alive. Sarah's instincts screamed, but the pull of her children was magnetic, a force she couldn't resist. Were they playing some kind of game? Or had they truly lost their minds to whatever lurked in the shadows? No. This isn't real, she gasped, desperation flooding her voice. You're my kids. You wouldn't want this. Don't you want to know? The voice outside cooed, dripping with malevolence that seeped into the very fabric of the diner. Want to know what lies beyond? What secrets await? The shadows stretched, mouths formed, beckoning with a beckoning kiss of madness. Sarah's breath hitched. She felt a suffocating dread that threatened to engulf her. Mom, please. They said we can belong. Lucy's face shone with an uncanny radiance, her words echoing with an otherworldly tone that chilled Sarah to the bone. Stop. Both of you, listen to me. She felt the tears prick at the corners of her eyes. We need to get out of here. A low rumble responded, resonating deep within the diner like a predator closing in. Thunder rolled again, crackling through the tension, as if nature itself recoiled from the scene unfolding. Lies. The voice snarled. You do not understand the true nature of your children. They were never just yours, they were chosen. Chosen for what? Panic clawed at Sarah's chest, but an answer was snatched away before it could form. The door quivered, as though the shadow outside were testing the integrity of this sanctuary. Sarah's feet felt glued to the grimy tiles, the absurd thought of giving in flickering in her mind like a faulty bulb. Suddenly, the voice leaned closer, the air in the diner thickening with dread. What if you never truly knew them? No, please, don't say that. She begged, but the shadows flickered again, revealing glimpses of otherworldly figures that twisted and writhed in the gloom. Her children raised their arms, inching nearer to the door, their laughter merging with the storm outside, a cruel cacophony that echoed through the diner. She blinked and it was as if they shifted before her eyes, forms momentarily breaking apart like smoke. Don't go to them. Sarah screamed, her voice ripping through the storm. You're my children. What if they're not? A whisper slithered from the dark. What if the real danger is you? The laughter stopped abruptly, cutting into the night like a knife, and silence reigned, suffocating and heavy. All that remained was the soft trickle of rain, the only witness to the nightmare unfolding. A tall figure emerged from the shadows, smile etched deep like a canyon, holding Lucy's favorite teddy bear in one outstretched hand. Sarah felt her heart drop. Isn't it time to play, Sarah? The figure whispered, eyes glinting like obsidian. The darkness seemed to throb around her, a living entity hungry for despair. Run! She screamed, gripping her children's shoulders, trying to pull them away from the edge of the abyss, but they were already slipping away, drawn to the creature and everything it proffered. As the figure stepped closer, the storm outside spiraled violently, a tornado of fury in response to the chaos within. In that moment, Sarah understood that escape wouldn't just be a battle against the shadows outside, it would be a fight to reclaim her children from whatever. Darkness had taken hold of them. As she tightened her grip, something deep within her whispered the unthinkable, what if they weren't meant to return? A new thrum of terror gripped her, forcing her onward into the storm, into the unknown, a hunt for salvation among shadows where hope was merely a flicker in the dark. And just like that, the night became her enemy, each heartbeat echoing the question, would she recognize her own before it was too late? Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps as she yanked at her children's shoulders, urgency flooding her limbs with adrenaline. The bear's eyes glinted in the dim light, a cold reflection of the horror creeping closer. We need to go. She cried, her voice barely a whisper against the rising storm. But the kids were lost in the trance of the creature's presence, frozen between their mother and the darkness. Mom, don't you see? Max's voice had a haunting quality, words dripping with an unsettling joy that sent shudders through Sarah. They want us. We belong with them. No. She pulled harder, but they barely budged, roots sinking deep into the ground. Panic consumed her. She couldn't lose them, not like this. The entity stepped closer, a silhouette that absorbed the dim light around it. Children can be so naive, it crooned, voice slathered in sweet poison. They know more than you think. Its long fingers twirled Lucy's teddy bear, a grotesque parody of play, a mockery of family. Come. Be one of us, the figure beckoned, and Sarah felt the air thrum with unseen power. She could feel the floor shaking beneath her feet, a living thing, throbbing in sync with her terror. Enough! Sarah shouted, brimming with desperate courage. Drawing every ounce of strength, she shoved her way between the kids and the lurking figure, locking eyes with the dark abyss in front of her. Get away from my children. For a heartbeat, the air stilled. Then, laughter erupted, high-pitched, demonic, echoing through the diner. The shadows writhed with twisted faces, mouths too wide, eyes too hollow. It broke her heart to think that they might be right, that those familiar smiles were just a facade slipping away. Mom, we want to stay, Lucy said softly, almost like a prayer, her once bright eyes clouding over. The brightness in them dimmed, replaced by an alien void that unnerved Sarah more with every passing second. She turned to Max, hoping to find a trace of the boy she knew, but his expression mirrored his sister's. The innocence was gone. No, no, no. She gasped, shaking her head, as if that could shatter the dark spell. An overwhelming surge of despair gripped her throat. She suddenly felt so small against the encroaching horror, the walls whispering secrets meant to frighten. We can play forever if you join us. Max's grin twisted, pulling at the corners of his mouth like a malicious mask. A low, guttural growl echoed from the shadows. Choose, Sarah. We offer eternity. Why cling to fleeting moments with a faint memory of joy? The diner's lights flickered, casting macabre shadows that danced across the walls. Survival instinct kicked in, and in the midst of it all, she felt something sharp rise within her. She was not just their mother, she was their protector. With renewed resolve, she shouted, You want them? You'll have to take me too. The laughter died instantly, replaced by an eerie, aching silence that dragged on. Each second stretched like a taut wire about to snap. Shadows seemed to recoil, drawing back as if weighing her challenge. Lucy and Max blinked in a sudden flash of clarity. Mom. They stepped back, confusion breaking through the trance. Could it be that a flicker of their true selves remained? Stay with me. Sarah cried, extending her hands, pulling them from the edge. But as the words hung in the air, the figure lunged forward, turning the blissful aura into an all-consuming darkness. Your sacrifices will be honored. It hissed, its eyes boring into her with an intensity that froze her blood. As the night grew heavier, her heart pounded like a drum, each thud a countdown. With every ounce of desperation, she sprinted towards the diner's entrance, pulling her children behind her. But just as they reached the door, a force slammed it shut, the warped laughter returning like the toll of a bell. The figure engulfed them in shadow, and Sarah felt the world around her warp, twisting into a dreadful void. Just then, a flicker of light burst through the window, the storm flashed once more, illuminating a sight she'd never forget. Broken figures in the shadows held out their hands, former souls crying for freedom, entrapped in an endless night. What if this is just the beginning? Sarah thought, terror paralyzing her as she faced the shadows flaring again, their cries ringing louder, drowning the storm outside into nothingness. With a wild gasp, she clawed at the door, fighting for an escape that felt endlessly out of reach. And deep within the dark, the voice hummed, seducing but menacing, the game has only just begun. Sarah's heart raced as she gripped the doorknob, her fingers slick with sweat. She pushed against the solid wood, but it wouldn't budge. An unyielding wall of darkness encased them. Panic clawed at her throat as the whispers grew louder, wrapping around her like a noose. The air thickened with the scent of decay, choking her resolve. Mom! Lucy's voice trembled, a faint echo in the growing chaos. The flickering lights barely illuminated their faces, panic reflected in their wide eyes. Max looked between them, caught in the clutches of confusion, that wretched grin fading to a look of sheer terror. "We need to get out," Sarah shouted, every instinct screaming for her to flee. She turned to face the darkness creeping in, holding firm the thought that her children still had a chance. "Fight it. Fight them." The figure loomed closer, its shadow swallowing everything in its path. It stretched its arm toward Max, fingers elongating into sharp, grotesque claws. "Join us, sweet boy, you'll find joy in the dark, where your mother cannot reach you." "No." Sarah lunged forward, but the shadows twisted, coiling around her legs, pulling her back with an unearthly strength. She felt them drag her into the abyss, an inevitable certainty that chilled her bones. "Mommy!" Lucy's scream cut through the darkness, piercing through the noise. Sarah turned, and with every ounce of strength, she pulled herself free from the sinister tendrils that sought to devour her. "No. Let us go." She poured every drop of her love into her words, desperate to pierce through the fog of deceit that surrounded her children. They were slipping away, she could feel it like sand through her fingers. The figure chuckled, a sound that resonated deeply in Sarah's core. "You think love can save them?" It hissed, eyes glowing like embers in the dark. "They are ready, Sarah. Ready to embrace the truth that you refuse." With determination, Sarah gathered her children close. "Listen to me. You are stronger than this. We are a family, and love is not something these monsters can take from us." But as she spoke, Lucy's head tilted slightly, her expression shifting to one of longing. "But Mom, it's so beautiful here. Why would we leave?" "No." The despair surged again, wrapping around Sarah's chest tighter than ever. "You're not thinking straight. It's a trick. Join us." Forever, the shadows whispered in unison. Time blurred, and Sarah felt her grasp loosen. The walls shuddered as if they could feel the longing within her children. "I want to let you take them," she shouted, her voice breaking, tinged with wild fury. Suddenly, a deafening roar erupted from the shadows, and the walls shook violently, casting the dining room into chaos. Plates clattered to the ground, and the lights exploded, plunging them into pitch black. They were engulfed, the air thick with palpable terror. Sarah tightened her grip on her children as her heart hammered louder than the storm outside. This was more than survival, it was a battle, a desperate fight for their very souls. Then, through the suffocating darkness, she spotted a faint glimmer, the massive kitchen exit. Instinctively driven, she pulled Max and Lucy toward it, wrenching their bodies from the grasp of despair. "Run!" she shouted, her voice hoarse, frantically pushing them forward while glancing back at the gathering shadows, but the entity wasn't finished. Its laughter rolled through the air like thunder, taunting them, resonating in a way that wrapped around their minds like a spider's web. "You think this is the end? Oh, sweet Sarah, you'll soon wish this night never began." As they dashed toward freedom, Sarah's breaths grew shorter, and her resolve was tested with each step. The exit was so close, yet the shadows grew thicker, forming a barricade that fed off her fear. "What if we never escape?" she thought, a flicker of dread igniting in her gut. "Just a little closer," she urged through gritted teeth, desperation flooding her voice. And just as they burst through the door, a pull, like icy fingers, yanked her back, leaving her teetering on the threshold, the abyss. Hungry behind her. "Mom!" Max yelled, reaching back for her hand, but it was too late. The last flashes of thunder illuminated a glimpse of the entity's face, a twisted grin settling too closely, too intimately, before the door slammed shut behind her kids. In that horrifying moment, frozen between the world of light and the nightmares hidden within, she realized she was not just fighting for their survival, she was entering a darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. What lay beyond that door? What price would she have to pay to rescue them from the clutches of the eternal night? And then, just as hope lingered like a flame flickering in the storm, a deep voice echoed from the shadows, candid and chilling. "Welcome to the game, Sarah. Every move has its consequences." The sensation of warmth faded as Sarah stood there, paralyzed. What had just happened? The door slammed shut, cutting off her children from her sight, their terrified faces vanishing behind a barrier built on fear and darkness. Every move has its consequences. The voice sulked in the silence, thick and magnetic. She felt it vibrating through her bones, sending icy shivers down her spine. She had been drawn into this nightmare, and she knew she had to act fast. "Max, Lucy!" She screamed, but her voice splintered in the creeping shadows that roamed like restless spirits. Each echo was swallowed, devoured by the thick presence of the entity. Sarah felt the weight of despair crash over her like a tidal wave. "What have I done?" she thought, tears stinging her eyes. The emptiness of the house pressed against her, suffocating, but she couldn't break. At least not yet. Ahead of her lay the room, dull and quiet, reeking of damp and decay. Every corner dripped with shadows, the walls whispering secrets she wasn't ready to hear. She hesitated but knew she had to venture deeper. Stumbling into the kitchen, the air felt heavy, thick with smoke and a lingering chill. Footprints scratched against the tile, leading toward the den. Shadows flitted in her peripheral vision. "They're just tricks," she told herself, every instinct screaming to turn back. But she forged on. Each step drew her closer to the heart of the darkness, the truths it concealed. As she crossed the threshold into the den, the atmosphere shifted. The air crackled with energy. A circle of flickering candles stood in the center, an otherworldly light illuminating the edges of the room. Strange symbols were drawn on the walls, twisting like ancient runes. Somehow, they felt familiar, meaningful, a reflection of something buried deep within her mind. "What is this?" she muttered, stepping closer to the candles. The flames flickered wildly, casting erratic shadows that danced as if alive. She felt drawn to them, compelled to sit, to listen. Suddenly, a low growl broke through the silence. Sarah whirled around, heart hammering, her breath hitching in her throat. The figure emerged from the darkness, silhouetted against the flames. It lingered at the edge, its shape shifting, writhing. "Sarah, dear," it drawled, the voice equal parts inviting and chilling. "Let them go!" she screamed, fury coursing through her veins. "You have no power over us." The figure laughed, and the sound sent chills racing through her body. "Oh, but love is a powerful weapon, is it not?" it purred, stepping closer, its words laced with venom. "You claim ownership over love. How brave! But can love conquer fear? Can it unearth truths best left buried?" Her stomach churned as the foundation of her beliefs began to crack. Emotion surged within her, memories flashing like lightning, moments with her children, laughter, warmth. "No, I won't give in." She shouted defiantly. The shadows swirled around her, teasing, tempting, trying to pull her into their depths. "What will you sacrifice, Sarah? Your children? Your sanity? Or will you give me your soul?" She staggered back, feeling dizzy. "You won't take anything from me," she cried, and the shadows shivered at her declaration, recoiling momentarily. "Bravery is not the same as wisdom, little one," it whispered, voice dripping with malice. "The game has just begun. And the stakes? Only you will truly understand them." As the entity loomed closer, Sarah's mind raced. The end was near, but there was still a glimmer of hope. She had to find a way to break the spell, to sever the bond tying her children to the darkness that had now swallowed part of her being. "Lucy! Max!" She screamed again, relentlessly calling out, her voice cutting through the stifling air, begging them to fight, to remember, but the silence that followed was deafening, and then, from the very shadows Sarah dreaded, a soft, chilling laughter echoed back. "You've awakened the game, Sarah. Now, dear, let us see how far you are willing to go to save them." As dread clawed at her heart, her next move felt like a dance on the edge of oblivion. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat, echoing the rhythm of a race against time. Where would this twisted game lead? And what darkness lay ahead, waiting to be uncovered? The shadows writhed around Sarah, folding in on themselves with sinister intent. The laughter, the scent of burnt memories lingered in the air like a noxious fog. She was trapped in this game, where rules could bend like a willowy tree and boundaries blurred into nothingness. With desperation clawing at her throat, she turned her back on the flickering candles. I can't let fear win, she thought, her heart pounding as she stumbled toward the den's exit. Each shadow seemed to whisper her name, taunting and deriding her resolve. But she wouldn't give in. Not now, yet as she reached for the door, it slammed shut with such force that the whole room shook. The coldness settled in her bones, smothering any remnant of warmth. Let them go. She screamed again, each word echoing like a battle cry, her spirit refusing to bow to the darkness closing in around her. I can make you forget, the voice taunted, slithering through the cracks in her mind. Forget their names, their faces, even your own. A wave of nausea washed over her, threatening to engulf her. Images surged: Max's goofy laughter, Lucy's tiny hands in hers. Memories flickered like the dying flames, and she fought against the tide. No, I won't, she whispered, as if to reassure herself against the rising panic. The room darkened, shadows swelling like an encroaching storm. What will you do, Sarah? It crooned, the voice drawing her attention back to those swirling depths. Will you give up your love? Or is there something else you desire to save them? In a moment of clarity, she understood, it wasn't just about her children. It was her own soul at stake. An echo of her children clung to the air, their laughter taunting her as the weight of her choices pressed down harder. I will unravel you, she vowed, her fists clenched. The candles flickered ominously, casting grotesque shapes against the walls. Ah, the brave little mother speaks boldly, the figure crooned, darkness swirling into a more defined shape, a monstrous visage with clawed hands, eyes like bottomless pits. But bravery is fleeting. Suddenly, the candles blew out, plunging the room into abyssal blackness. Sarah felt the panic boil inside her like a cauldron, the voice now circling around her, close enough to press against her skin. Can you hear them? Their cries. She strained her ears, and for an instant, she thought she heard them, Max and Lucy, faint and pleading. Her heart shattered across the airwaves. Hold on, my loves, she shouted, pushing against the weight of the dark presence squeezing her heart. Hold on. The entity laughed, razor-sharp notes cutting through her resolve. You can't protect them forever, dear Sarah. I can help if you're willing to bargain. There's safety for your secrets, an enticing offer, don't you think? Breathless, she reeled back at the audacity of its suggestion. You want my secrets? Take them. Just let my kids go. The laughter erupted again, reverberating through the suffocating darkness. Oh, dear Sarah, secrets are not so easily relinquished. But I do admire your tenacity. Tell me, when is the last time you truly saw them? What darkness do you hide in your own heart that frightens you more than me? Stop it, she screamed, frustration spilling over into terror. You win. Ah, but the game isn't over, it sang, the voice growing softer, more insidious. What will it take to peel back your layers? What pain shall you offer to save them? The truth lies deeper than even you know. Amidst the chaos, a glimmer of intuition sparked within her. No, she breathed, her resolve hardening. I won't let you manipulate me. I'll find a way. The shadows trembled at her newfound strength, a ripple of uncertainty momentarily unsettling their dominance. She rushed back toward the candles, drawn again by their flickering light. I will face you, not just for my children, but for me. But as she reached within the circle, a deafening silence fell, one that awakened something more profound, more ancient. The ground beneath her shook, and she felt a fracture in reality itself. Then let us begin, the figure whispered, and her heart raced as the room spun out of control. Time is short and the clock is ticking, it taunted. Just then, a chilling voice echoed from the shadows. Mom, help. It was her children. The pain echoed in her chest. Lucy. Max. But as panic rushed through her veins, a horrifying realization settled in. What if the truth she feared most was not only about the darkness outside but the darkness within? The ground rumbled once more, and an ominous glow began to pulse from the walls. What had she just unleashed? How would she confront the truth that intertwined their fates? The game had twisted, revealing a path Sarah was not prepared to walk. As shadows whispered secrets she was too afraid to confront, Sarah held her breath. What if the next move she made determined everything, forcing revelations she feared were buried deep? And without warnings, hands reached out from the darkness, grasping at her, a reminder that the stakes were more harrowing than she could ever imagine. The pulsing glow from the walls intensified, throwing contorted shadows like a living tapestry of terror. Sarah's heart raced as a cold sweat formed on her brow. Fear curled around her throat, squeezing tighter with each beat as the hands from the darkness gripped her wrists. She was not just losing herself, she was teetering on the edge of an abyss that threatened to swallow her whole. "Mom, please." The voice of her daughter echoed again, soft and frightened, dissolving any remnants of courage that lingered within her. She stumbled backwards, pulling away from the ghostly fingers, but they clung tighter, dragging her deeper into the unseen horrors. "Let them go," she cried, but her voice cracked, barely carrying through the suffocating air. All around her, shadows flickered, and the laughter sweetened by malice erupted anew. It echoed like a mocking symphony, each note a reminder of her inability to protect her children from the evil that lurked there. "Do you feel it?" The figure hissed with a voice as smooth as ice, yet sharp like broken glass. "The weight of your guilt. Your secrets are like the chains that bind you here. Only by revealing them will you free your children." "No!" she shouted, grounding herself in the warmth of her memories, the moments that had once brought her joy. Max's infectious giggle, Lucy's mischievous grin. She couldn't let those memories drown in despair. Yet, temptation slithered through the room like a creeping vine. "What good are those memories?" it taunted. "You can't protect them. You've failed them before. Let me help you forget your failures, and you'll find peace." The shadows around her vibrated, transforming into a swirling vortex of darkness. Fear tightened like a vice, squeezing her chest. She was torn between the instinct to flee and a deep hunger to face whatever truth awaited her. "No more!" she screamed, and in that moment, a flicker of hope surged through her. A tiny spark ignited in her depths. She would not betray herself. She had lost too much already. "Then let us see what you're truly made of," the figure whispered. "Are you ready to confront the truth? Reality as you know it is only a glimpse of what lies ahead." The walls began to distort, ethereal images flashing within in rapid succession. Past wounds bared themselves like raw flesh, moments of weakness, lapses in judgment, times she wasn't there when it mattered most. Each memory dragged her down, but her fury blazed brighter. Was she not more than her mistakes? Desperation clawed at her mind, pleading for release. "I will not let you take me," she choked out, digging her nails into the spectral hands that clawed at her. In defiance, she pressed forward, toward that luminous pulse, toward the truth lurking beyond the veil. Suddenly, with a bone-chilling screech, the shadows recoiled as the pulsing light erupted into a blinding incandescence. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, shielding them from the radiant explosion. The fear blazed hot within her but was soon cooled by a raging resolve. "I choose my children," she declared, the words ringing fiercely through the darkness, vibrating the very core of her being. As she opened her eyes, the room transformed. The shadows fragmented, retreating as if her determination had shattered their malevolent hold, but as the darkness retreated, a chilling realization washed over her: she was not alone in the room. A new presence stirred in the corner, eyes glistening with malevolence. In the newfound light, she took a step back, her breath hitching at the sight. "What have you done?" it hissed, the voice curling around her like a serpent, each syllable laced with anger and disdain. That in her heart, a new dread settled. With her rebellion came unanticipated consequences. She had unleashed something darker. And now, it was hungry. The ground trembled once more. Was this a beginning or an end? Who would pay the price for her defiance? The dark figure stalked closer, the air thickening with its hunger. Your truth will be your undoing, it sneered, and Sarah felt the weight of inevitability crash down upon her. As she readied herself for the confrontation ahead, a distant voice echoed once more, "Mom, help." But now, the shadows were restless, and they craved a different kind of truth. What would Sarah uncover next, and at what cost? The air crackled with tension, a storm of shadows swirling in response to Sarah's defiance. She stood her ground, heart racing, every instinct screaming for her to flee, but she wouldn't abandon her children. Not now. The figure loomed larger, its form shifting, an insatiable darkness eager for a sacrifice to sate its appetite. Your truth will be your undoing. It hissed, as if daring her to falter, to surrender to despair. But Sarah felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. She was not merely a mother but a warrior, love could be her sword. "You don't know me," she shouted, the words bursting forth like a dam breaking. "And you will not win." The creature laughed, an eerie sound that reverberated through the room. "You think you can resist? Your guilt is a heavy anchor, and we will drag you down together." Yet Sarah felt the soil of her resolve deepening. She had faced fear before, she had conquered it once, and she would again. Suddenly, she thought of Lucy's laughter, the warmth of Max's hugs. Those memories radiated like sunlight within her, igniting a fire that pushed back against the encroaching dark. With every ounce of strength, she focused on that love and drew it into her very being. "You want my truth?" she declared, fierceness growing in her voice. "I'll show you truth. But it's not the weakness you think it is." The shadows recoiled slightly, as if hissing against the newfound light that surged from within her heart. Sarah stepped forward, daring to confront the creature. Images flashed through her mind, moments she'd wished to forget, the failure of keeping her children safe, nights filled with doubts. "You think I don't know how I've faltered?" she shouted, the pain raw in her throat. "But I've also loved fiercely, and that love is stronger than your darkness." As her truth poured from her lips, the shadows convulsed, their twisted forms trembling in uncertainty. "No. This is not part of the game." It screamed, thrashing against the bonds of its own creation as Sarah's love radiated brighter, dispelling the darkness that clung to the walls. The light engulfed her, a beacon fueled by the very essence of motherhood. In that moment, she caught sight of her children still tethered by the lurking abyss, but their faces were beginning to shift again, the innocence breaking through the strange ecstasy that had entranced them. "Mom! What's happening?" Lucy's eyes glimmered, confusion creasing her brow, and Sarah took a desperate step forward. "Fight it!" Sarah cried. "You're my children. Remember who you are. Fight together." Her voice rang with conviction, shaking the shadows that twisted around them, trying to pull them back into the dark. For a flicker of time, the world hung between two realities, the light expanding against the tide of shadows, breathing life into the frayed edges of their connection. "We are," the entity howled, but Sarah pushed against the noise, her love surging forth, filling the emptiness. "Together," she called, holding out her hands. With every word, the air thickened with power, becoming palpable, drawing her children back from the brink. They looked at her, eyes darting between her and the darkness, memories of safety flickering like dying embers within. "Mommy, we want to come back," Max wailed, his voice echoing with urgency. Desperation flooded the space her children needed her. That palpable bond swirled tightly around them, uniting their hearts against the chaos. "Then come to me," Sarah screamed, pulling them toward the light, toward the sanctuary between struggle and love. Brightness blazed against the darkness, pouring unyieldingly over the edges like a flood breaking from a dam. And in that instant, the shadows recoiled, shrieking in agony against the tide of warmth and honesty. Howling voices arose, their rancid truths overshadowed by an undeniable force, a mother's power, sturdy and fierce in the face of all she feared. "No, no, 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 no. The entity screeched, but the light surged forth, a tidal wave of unyielding love, sweeping everything away. You cannot take them from me. Yet the darkness was no longer a menace. It shrank back, dissolving under the brilliant embrace of Sarah's determination. With every shudder of uncertainty, it fell, fragmenting into dust, collapsing under the brilliance of a mother's heart. As the last whispers of darkness faded, the room shifted a kaleidoscope of warmth, the storm outside finally relenting, softening into a gentle patter. Sarah found herself in the familiar kitchen, the flickering candlelight's glow casting soft shadows upon the walls. "Mom." Lucy's voice was small, breaking the tranquility that had settled over them. Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she rushed forward, gathering them tightly in her arms. They tangled together, their hearts beating wildly, the rhythm of life rejoicing against a night of terror. "Mom, were we?" Max began, confusion still lingering in his gaze, but Sarah brushed her finger against his cheek. "You're home. We're safe." Together they stepped outside, the storm gone, the air fresh and fragrant. The night settled into a cocoon of silence, free from fear. As they breathed in the sweet scent of rain-soaked earth, Sarah felt the warmth expanding within her, a promise echoing in the gentle murmur of the wind. The game was over, and yet, one thing remained clear: every dark encounter had left an imprint, a reminder that strength can emerge from the shadows. They turned toward each other, laughter trickling through their hearts like the rain, cleansing them of yesterday's horrors. "Never again," she vowed quietly, hugging her children tight. "We'll face the world together." As they moved back inside, Sarah knew the trials of the past wouldn't define their future. Love and unity would light the path forward. She glanced back once, remembering the shadows but refusing to dwell on them, and with newfound clarity, she whispered into the night, "We choose love. Always." In that moment, peace settled over them like a warm blanket, an unspoken promise that no matter what darkness arose, they would face it together. Don't wait another second. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this journey alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let your voice be heard. And for the love of storytelling, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference, and only true fans understand the power of community.